Hello CraftDee family, and welcome to another tutorial by She's So CraftDee. For today's DIY projects, we will be creating some beautiful home decor made with items from the Dollar Tree and items $1 or less. Now these projects feature a fresh spring look with a touch of warmth and some rustic farmhouse style accents. Now these are perfect for different types of home decor by simply changing up the decorative accents or even changing the color. Now, as always, all of the projects I create have a complete supply list in the description box, so you can easily use it for reference as you gather up your supplies. Now, before we start, I have to say hey to all of my subscribers, and if you're a new visitor to my channel today, I hope you consider subscribing as well, and stick around to enjoy these crafts and all the tips that I will share along the way. So now, let's jump right into the projects. Now this project is a large cloche decor piece. Now we're going to need one plate, and I got this for 50 cents from Walmart, but you can get a plate from the Dollar Tree as well. I'm also going to need one candle holder from the Dollar Tree or any candle holder of your choice. We're also going to need one of these large cloche bell covers from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to use the lid of one of these candy bowls from the Dollar Tree or any lid of your choice. We're also going to need some wood beads from the Dollar Tree, or you can get these from Amazon. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is take our cloche bell cover, and we want to remove that sticker. So you just want to carefully peel it back, and once you peel it back, you just want to wipe away any residue that it leaves behind until you have a nice clean surface to work with. Now we're going to go ahead and remove that vent cover at the top, and this was really easy. All I did was bend up each edge, and it did just pop right off, and the little black piece just pops off as well, and we could throw that to the side. Now it does leave two holes at the top, but we're going to be covering that with that lid from that candy bowl dish. Now the Dollar Tree does have some other kind of small lidded bowls, and you can use those lids as well, but I had this candy bowl dish cover on hand, and I'm going to place that on top. Now to adhere it, I'm just going to use my hot glue. You do want to make sure you use a clear acrylic type glue stick in this so you won't see it. And I'm carefully adding one layer around the top and then pressing it on top of my bell cloche. So now that that's adhered, we could start working on the stand portion. So I'm going ahead and taking that plate. You want to make sure you remove any stickers and clean the bottom surface as well. And then I'm going to take my candle holder piece, and I'm going to be adhering this to the bottom. Now I am going to be using hot glue for this, but if you want a permanent hold, make sure you use E6000 Gorilla Glue or something stronger. So now just add the glue of choice around your candle holder and press it into the center of the bottom of the plate. Now once that does glue and adhere, you have a nice stand to place your bell cloche right on top. So I'm doing a test fit here, and everything fits perfectly on top of the plate. So now it's time to decorate with whatever you want, and what I have on hand is this little wreath. Now I made this little wreath in a previous DIY, and all it is eucalyptus branches from Walmart and the Dollar Tree mini wreath forms, and I'll link this in the upper right hand corner of this video and also in the description box if you would like to make one as well. So I'm going to take that wreath and sit it on top of my plate. I'm going to take some beads that I've put on some elastic string that's also available at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to add one of these battery candles that I had on hand for the center. Now once you put the topper on there, it makes a really cute display, and then all you have to do is to add any other accents you like. So I'm placing the elastic strand of wood beads right around it, and it just gives it that nice little final touch that I really love, and that is really all you have to do to make this a beautiful display. And now here it is on display, and I love how simple and sweet this piece looks in my space. Now even though this cloche and lid are made of plastic, it really does look like a large glass cover that you would usually see in a high-end store. Then all you have to do is add some decorative beads around the bottom, and it gives it that finishing touch to complete the look. Now I do love this fresh and clean version, but you can also make this in other finishes as well. Now I did take the plate and lid and I painted them with some flat black spray paint, and then I grabbed a black candle holder to make this into a totally different look. And here is the cloche with the black finish, and I love how this version turned out. Now I do love the sleek look of the black finish on this piece, and it really does look high-end. Now just like the first one, I also added some black beads too for just that finishing touch. Now you all have to let me know what version of this project do you love the most. Now this project is a round medallion decor piece. You're going to need one round sign of your choice from the Dollar Tree and one garden fence section from the Dollar Tree, and you can also get the same item from Family Dollar for $1. So the first thing we're going to do is grab our sign, remove any embellishments and the tags, and we are going to paint it, and we will be painting the back of the sign. Now I'm going to be using some white chalk paint to give it a nice good coat on the back. You just want to make sure the entire back of your sign has a really nice even coat. And then go back and forth horizontally just to make sure it's spread nice and evenly. You do want to make sure you get around the edges as well and allow it to completely dry. Now while that does dry, go ahead and grab your fence section, and we're going to start designing this into our decor piece. Now I love to cut this with a pair of nice heavy duty scissors, and I don't have any issues with that, but you could also use some wire clippers, and I'll be using wire clippers and scissors for this project. So once you remove all of the tags, you want to go ahead and remove those stakes at the bottom of your fence piece. And then what you want to do is divide each one of the fence sections. They have 4 sections in here, and all I'm going to do is cut vertically up that division line between each one of those sections. You just want to make sure you go very carefully all the way up, not to break your piece. Now here's one of the fence sections all cut out. You just want to repeat this for the remainder of your fence. And here are all 4 pieces all cut out and ready to go. Now I'm going to take one of the pieces and I'm going to be trimming it out. I wanted the middle swirl piece to be trimmed out from the frame. So this is where I'm going to start using my wire clippers just to clip those pieces off. So I'm clipping carefully around those swirl pieces, just making sure I remove all of the excess trim all the way around it. Now I love these little wire clippers. They clip off little bits at a time, so that prevents the piece from cracking or causing a damage to the piece. Now once I get the main larger pieces cut off, I want to do all my fine work very slowly and easily. I'll cut up around that circle swirl, and then I'll cut on the outside, clipping it away. So nipping it away little bits at a time not only prevents it from being damaged, but it helps your pieces look more round in the very end. So you just want to do this all the way around those swirl pieces for all your fine detailing work. And now you can see it has a nice round end, and you want to repeat this all the way around your piece as you trim it off. Now here is one piece all nice and trimmed off with your clippers, and if you have a few jagged edges, you definitely can go in with some sandpaper to smooth all of those pieces off. Now that you have this piece done, you're going to repeat this for your other 3 sections. And here are all 4 of your pieces ready to go for your project. So we're going to take 2 of those pieces, go ahead and sit those to the side, and we're going to work on these 2 pieces here. Now we will be cutting these down at the very bottom. So you could take your wire clippers or your scissors, and we're just going to cut these down right where the bottom starts to split into those 2 swirls, leaving a little kind of V connection at the bottom as shown here. So once you have that first one, to make sure it's the same, I just stack them on top of each other, and I cut it along that very same line that I cut the first time, and this way both of your pieces are exact. And now you have your 2 pieces cut and ready to go. Okay, so all of our pieces are ready to assemble for our project. So we're going to take our 2 full swirl pieces here, and I am going to overlap them as shown here to make the center of our medallion design. Now we do want to make sure we take the length into consideration. We want to make sure it will fit our sign. So around 11 inches is where I'm going for here. It can be slightly over, but 11 inches is what I used. And so I'm going to flip the pieces over because when we start adhering them together, we want to make sure the good side is facing down. So once you have them spaced at 11 inches, I'm taking my hot glue gun, carefully lifting one of the pieces up and putting glue down in the trench in the back of those fence pieces and starting to press them firmly together until they bond. So once these have sat for a little while and bonded together, here is what it will look like so far. So now we're going to take our 2 additional pieces that we cut. One will be placed at the top as shown here, and one will be placed at the bottom, and they'll be joining in the middle. Now that middle can be kind of bulky, so we do just want to make sure we take into consideration our placement. So now I'm going to go ahead and just trim the edges of that fence piece down where they're going to meet in the middle, because we want to remove some of that bulk. So I'm trimming it down with my wire clippers and my scissors until it's kind of flat as shown here, and I'm trimming it up at about 1/2 inch up from the bottom. So once we lay our piece in the center and then lay the other piece on top, it should be just a little bit flatter, and we are going to trim that second piece down the same way so we can have the flattest portion that we can in the center of our medallion on the back. So once our pieces lay like we want to, we can start adhering them. Now the first thing I'm going to do is put a generous amount of hot glue in the center of that piece and let it completely dry. This will provide a base to put our cross-connecting pieces in. Now once that center dries, add glue on top of that again, and then we can add one of our interconnecting pieces in the middle and then press it in place until that dries. Now while it dries, you can go ahead and start adding some hot glue around that piece in the little trenches, anything to help hold it right in place while it sets. And then when that sets, add your top piece right on top, and then we're going to add some hot glue on top of the center and then place that top piece on there. And again, we just want to make sure all the pieces are nice and set, and add some hot glue in all of those trenches around there, and then make sure all the pieces are in the perfect positioning before they completely set, and then let them sit to dry for a little while. And now that they are dry to touch, this is what the medallion piece will look like. All the pieces have set and it looks great. So then you want to take a little broom, and then you kind of want to just sweep away all of those hot glue webs, because you probably will have quite a few. So you want to remove those from your project. Now if you notice, some of these cut edges are a different color than the rest of them, and they may stand out, but we're going to blend those in by adding a coat of some flat black spray paint by Krylon, and this should blend everything together. Now while that dries, go ahead and grab that sign. So it should be nice and dry from the chalk paint now, and we're going to add just a little bit of distressing. So I'm using some elephant gray acrylic paint. Now I'm just going to dry brush it inward around the edges with one of those little natural bristle brushes from the Dollar Tree, just giving it just the slightest bit of distressing around the edges as shown here. Now this should only take a few minutes to dry, and it's all ready to go. So now we can cover the back. Now this just gives it such a professional finish, and I always love to cover the back of my projects that have the art on them. Now to bond this together, we're just going to use our hot glue, run a bead around the around the sign all the way around, and you flip it over and adhere it to the brown craft paper. You just want to press it down and make sure that it's securely bonded. And now I'm just sliding in my cutting mat underneath and using my utility blade to trim off all of the excess all the way around the sign. And now the back of your sign looks nice and neat and professional. So now what we're going to do is add a hang string. Now I just have a doubled piece of jute twine with knots tied on each end to hang this up. Really simple. Now you don't want to bond this to the paper because the paper might rip. We want to bond it to the actual sign. So I'm marking where those knots fall and then taking my utility blade and cutting out 2 small squares of that craft paper so we can get to the natural board underneath. And this is where we're going to be hot gluing those knots in place. Just apply a heaping amount of hot glue at those open cutout squares, press those knots in there until they're nice and bonded, and add some additional hot glue over the tails. Now to cover up all your work, I did cut 2 pieces of craft paper. I'm just going to outline them with the hot glue as well and then press them over all of the ends, and this just cleans up those ends and makes them look so neat and professional. And now that both of those are bonded in place, your back of your project is nice and ready to go. So by this time, your artwork for your fence is now dry and it looks great. So now we can bond it to our round sign and everything fits perfectly. Now I'm going to grab some of those clips, and these are from Crafter Square at the Dollar Tree, and this is just to hold the sign in place while we bond it. So to bond it to the sign, I'm adding a heaping amount of hot glue at the back of each one of those arrows where it comes in contact with the sign, as well as putting a heaping amount in the center. And then you want to carefully adhere it to the sign, making sure everything is nice and centered. You want to press it down for a few seconds and then start to add your clips all the way around the sign where all of your arrows point out. And then you want to let this sit until it's completely bonded. Alright, so we've let it sit for a while. We're going to remove our clips, and as you can see, our medallion is nice and adhered and those arrows are nice and flush to the sign. It turned out perfect. And now we can just hang this up. And oh my goodness, you guys, here is what it looks like, and I absolutely love it. Now I really just can't get over how much these fence pieces look like iron artwork, and you can create each one of them for only a couple of dollars. Now you can make one of these, 2, or even more for this price. Let me know what you think about this project in the comments. Now this project is a set of metal trimmed vases. Now we're going to need 3 of these oil and vinegar glass bottles from the Dollar Tree. And we're also going to need one of these metal grill toppers from Dollar General. Now the first thing we're going to do is take those bottles. You want to remove those toppers. They should pop right off. You want to make sure that your little bottles or vases are nice and clean, and I clean them beforehand. And then once you do that, we're going to actually paint these. So I'm going to add 2 coats of this satin white spray paint by Krylon, but you can definitely use chalk or acrylic paint if you like. So here are the bottles. They have been painted and now they're completely dry. So now we're going to grab our grill topper. Now if you notice, this grill topper, it does have some sharp edges around it, so you do want to be careful around it. I strongly suggest that you use gloves for this project. Do as I say, not as I do. But you definitely want to protect your hands. So this is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to measure the width of the bottle here, and I'm going to measure how wide I want to cut my metal pieces. So it needs to be cut between 4.5 to 5 inches. So what I'm doing is I'm laying down a piece of paper under my metal grill here, and I'm marking it at 5 inches, and I'm only doing this so my marker doesn't go through to my little green mat there. So I'm going to mark the first piece at 5 inches, and then I'm going to go ahead and mark 2 more pieces at 5 inches until you have 3 sections. Now these easily cut with a pair of scissors. Again, you want to be extremely careful with these because when you do start to cut them, they have very sharp edges. Now for the rounded corner ends, I'm going to cut off about 1.5 inches off each one of them just to make sure they have a nice straight edge, and then cut off the end with the little binding as well until you have a piece that looks like this. Now I am going to take one of my bottles and just make sure that when I wrap it around the bottle, there is enough to actually wrap it around and overlap, and there is. So I'm just going to use this piece as a template when I make my other 2 pieces, and now we have 3 pieces cut out. Okay, so now we're going to start bonding them to the jars. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on the jars, and I'm just going to start rolling the metal around the jars. Now each time you roll around a curve, just lift it up and kind of press that curve into the metal. There's really no need to glue this to the jars because the metal grate will kind of just bond itself or kind of cling to the jars. So I'm just, each time I roll it around, I'm just kind of removing that jar, and then just kind of maybe putting that little just gentle fold in there all the way around so it'll cling to the jar when it's all done. Now, as you notice, this last fold over here is the longer side. So what we're going to do is we are going to be trimming that down. So I'm just going to gently just lift that edge up, and I'm going to be trimming that down with a pair of scissors, and I'm going to trim it where it covers about half of the back and it overlaps the other side. And so now you have your completed cutout, and you just want to wrap it around your jars and just make sure everything is pressed and firm into place. So I wanted to trim out the edges of the metal piece, and what I did is I took 6 strands of Dollar Tree Jute twine and I put it into I made a little braid here. So I made a really long braid, and I'm going to be using this to trim out the top and bottom edges. So all I'm going to do is add a line by line hot glue. You definitely want to start on the back side where those pieces overlap so you won't see the start and beginning. And just add hot glue around the top edge of that metal piece, just making sure those sharp edges are nice and covered up with your braided jute twine. So once you wrap it around and you get around that fourth side, you're about to join it to the other end. So what you want to do is estimate where those ends will come in contact, and where they come in contact, you want to add hot glue on the actual braided strand. Now when you add hot glue to the braided strand, you want to allow that to dry, and what that'll do is keep your braid from becoming unraveled as you cut it. So once that glue does dry, you want to go ahead and take your scissors and cut it right across that area where you added your hot glue, and that way your ends will be nice and bonded. And then just hot glue the end of your cut piece, joining in to the beginning of the piece that you wrapped around the top. Now once you press and join those together, you can remove any excess hot glue that may ooze out of that seam, and then that piece is nice and bonded. And once that's done, you want to repeat that to the bottom of your bottle until both sides are covered. And here is what the metal trim will look like on your bottle. And now you just want to repeat this for your other 2 bottles by adding the metal trim and also the braided trim. And now here are all 3 all done. Really super easy to do. And just like that, they are ready to decorate and display. I mean, how cute are these bottles? Now you can add greenery, bows, or any accent that you like to make these blend into your decor in your space. Now guys, I really had fun creating these projects today, and I hope that they have inspired you. Now, as always, I do love them all, but you all have to let me know in the comments which one of these was your favorite today. Listen, if you love DIYs on a budget, please give this video a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. Make sure that you're following She's So Crafty EE on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest for the latest news, sneak peeks, and giveaways. If you like videos like these and you don't want to miss the next one, make sure you're subscribed by clicking that subscribe button below, or just click on my She's So Crafty logo on your screen and make sure you hit that bell to be notified when the next DIY goes live. It's absolutely free. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.